Peace, big love, big blessings, even bigger living. Everything that come with it and everything in between. You are tuned in to Thinking Out Loud with Samuel David. It's just a conversation. Thinking Out Loud is a place of empathy, transparency, candidacy, a safe space for those who pull up. We explore where we've been while we bring the world along to where we're going and bring those on the outside into our world. Enough of that. Today I got a special guest. All guests are special.
Yeah.
But today I got a super special guest. And I want to make sure I do this on point, on purpose. She is an affordable housing advocate, a conversation catalyst, an inclusion and diversity educator, a community mobilizer, and super volunteer. Right? Yes, I'm hitting it. She is the executive director for Wichita Habitat for Humanity and the majority owner of Inclusive Growth Strategies, which is an inclusion and diversity consulting business. She is a half owner of BIB, Bringing in Black, with my amazing wife. She's a mother and a wife, and just overall dynamic person in general, and a great friend of mine. I would say family.
Thank you.
Today I got Mrs. Danielle Johnson.
Whew.
What's
I
up?
live up to the hype.
That's sorry. You like that?
It was.
First off, thank you for pulling up.
Yes, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah.
I'm honored.
Oh, don't be
We've had some great guests, so I'm just following a good lineup.
word.
It's exciting.
100%.
Yeah.
You know, it's so Thinking Out Loud has been around for a little bit, and I've had you on my list, and I'm like, I'm gonna get Danielle, and I'm gonna get Danielle, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna get Danielle. So I'm glad you finally reached out.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, during this season or iteration, you're the first woman guest as well.
Oh, look at me.
Look at
I'm
you.
here for these first.
Special. It's special. So if you tapped in and tuned in, I start every conversation the same. And I don't write down a lot of questions
Okay.
because we just thinking out loud. It's just a conversation.
Yeah.
But the question I let to start every convo with Danielle is, how is your spirit?
Oof. She's busy.
Word.
She's slightly tired.
Yeah.
She's contemplating. Yeah. Learning how to navigate some things at 38 in a different headspace, leading differently.
Yeah.
But she floating.
She float. Yeah, that's better than drowning, right?
Right.
That's better than that could be the latter.
Yeah.
You said contemplate. Well, first off, I love that you put the pronoun on the she, because you know some people just be like, we like, no, you recognize the spirit. You see, when you say contemplate, what's some things you contemplate? What's on your mind?
You know, I think for a long time I've been blessed to serve in a number of spaces and work on really great teams. But I think also you hit that point of, are we being effective? Are we being impactful? Who's missing from these spaces?
Word.
Don't go off on people the way you want to, because
right.
they're just not there yet.
Yeah.
So just trying to figure it out.
It's ill you say that, because I was like, asked Felicia, I'm like, yo, but what's some questions I should ask Mrs. Danielle Johnson? And she was like, balance. So to hear you speak about that contemplate, you just recognize how many things you're carrying, what you're doing in life,
right?
Making sure people in the right spaces. How do you find balance, right, in your busy world? Because the grind don't stop. I read the list, right?
It does not. Right. You know, I'm a Libra.
100%.
Which is
bars.
Right.
Okay.
I don't necessarily balance, and I've never balanced well. I've braided, I've blended. I've heard someone recently use harmony. How do you be in harmony? I've done a lot of just, how do I kind of stack things together and work on really effective teams?
Okay.
I've never balanced, though. That's just something, when you're really stretching and running, something goes undone, unseen. And I'm certain there's probably folks out there that do balance. I'm not one of them.
Word.
There's a sacrifice in everything you do. So I'm not the balance girl, but I can bring some things together, make it shake, make it work, whatever it is. That it's not balance.
Yeah. So we swimming now. Thinking out loud, we bounce all over the place. Yeah. So hearing that is ill, because from the outside looking in, you do a lot, and you, again, perspective wise, perception wise, super successful.
I appreciate
Super
that.
impactful, for sure. But it's not, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like the team piece of it keeps you on point.
Yeah.
When I was Googling you, because I still got to do my Googles. You my people. I'm still doing my Googles. You know me. A lot of servitude leadership.
Yes.
right? In almost every space that you've been in professionally, nonprofit as well,
Yeah.
right? What put that on your heart?
Yeah. That's a great question. Servant leadership is just a tenet of mine. It's a value. I'm in a lot of different organizations, and one of which is like Rotary, and our mantra is service above self.
Okay.
And I think that served me well to work alongside others. The reciprocity in this community is real. When you've given and you've given and you've given, things come back in return. You don't give because you're wanting it back, but it's always twofold. And so I have been blessed to serve in different spaces. And I think that comes from my parents too. My dad has done a lot of things. I grew up, I'd have to get up and with him and do Meals on Wheels, right? You don't realize what you're soaking up with your family when you're having to get up in the morning and not lay up all day on a Saturday, eat your cereal, watch a cartoon. Says, no, let's work on this rental home. Let's make sure we're volunteering. And I just witnessed enough volunteering in my household that it meant something to me to go and do the work and not just sit and talk about it, but how do I get engaged and move in community or alongside community?
Yeah. Ooh, that's a bar in there. That's a bar.
Because we heard in the song.
You feel me? But no, it almost makes it like second nature, like you mentioned, like it's your normal. Like anything else than that would be abnormal at a point. Knowing when you're in community, when you serve in community, sometimes it may not always be received well, right? And I know we've had conversations in real life outside of thinking out loud about some of the animosity you have to deal with from folks on the outside, but graceful. You move mad graceful.
I appreciate that.
Right. How does that happen? Like to recognize, I don't want to but I can almost imagine it's like, yo, whatever I'm doing is bigger than me.
Yeah.
So y'all don't matter.
Yeah.
Respectfully.
Yeah.
But for you, how does that work? How do you find the balance?
Right. Yes. I feel like as I'm getting older, not that I'm really old in the game, but I'm getting older, right?
No, 37, 30,
Right.
yeah, you know.
We're young in the game. We're young in the game. Understanding the walk of others, having radical empathy, understanding my privileges. It would be easy to say, why don't you know how to do this? And I say that in my head, in my heart, I want to be like, man, you don't know that or you don't understand that. But I have to remember, came from a 2-parent home, wasn't always perfect, but there were some things I was afforded. I had parents that could read to me at home. Like there are things that you reflect on as an adult. I didn't move around. I understood what stable housing was because my parents ensured that I had a roof over my head. That's not everybody's walk of life. So how can I go off in this space when other people are dealing with things vastly different than me? And so I have to have the empathy. If I want to walk alongside community, it looks like a little bit more grace, a little bit more patience, creating opportunity for education because I don't know what's going on in someone's household and someone's world. And so to be trusted, I have to be able to be open with other people. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't have the moments where I don't want to cuss someone out.
Word.
I don't. I try not to. Brandon hears a lot of it. My friends and family probably hear more of my complaints, if not, but very much understanding that I have to meet people where they are, and that is not easy.
That isn't.
But that's the call.
Ooh, that's the call. Ooh, purpose. Walking in purpose.
Right.
On purpose.
Yes.
Empathy. Empathy is one of my favorite things. My daughter says sometimes I'm too empathetic. When she get to telling me her stories about friends and stuff like that, she's like, are you always...
Well, you signed up with them.
Right. I like to look at two sides of everything.
Right.
3 sides in some spaces, right? But then the accountability.
Right.
Because just because I put myself in your shoes or I seek to understand what may inform the way you navigate, the way you think, the way you move, I still got to hold you accountable.
Yes.
What does that look like for you?
That's it. I love that. I think sometimes we can grace. You need to have grace, but that doesn't mean I keep letting you slide.
You feel me?
Right. An apology without changed behavior is just you talking. So how do I balance? I can be empathetic to your situation, but how do we change the behaviors? How do we get you to the other side? And that is very much accountability. I also know I used to want to be in every space. Some spaces are not for me.
Okay.
Some spaces folks don't want me in. It's not my lane. I'm fine getting right back in let me get back in my car and drive down this street because I'm not needed or wanted in that space. And realizing I cannot keep giving in every space to get my hand snapped. And that's happened. And I think you learn the lesson and you pivot.
Word.
But that accountability piece,
Yeah.
like stop inviting me to meetings where we ain't gonna have no agenda.
They saying we meeting just to meet.
Right. I was just having this conversation with Brandon about, I understand that we are in spaces where people have trauma. I understand that sometimes we want to stay in a space where we're talking about who hurt us.
Yeah.
At some point, we got to get to the space of the solution. Like, we can't keep having the beat up conversation. We can beat up every leader if we want to. But when do we get to the solutions discussions or offer the partnership or offer the opportunity? Because if we live in the space of nothing will ever change, nothing and no one is doing anything,
Yeah.
then we'll never get to the solution side. I want to be on the solution side of the conversation, not the beat it to death side of the conversation.
100%. So non-productive.
No.
And I say it often, like the people who are in those beat up conversations are never in the healing conversations.
Not usually.
Like the complainers are never there when it's time to talk about the resolution. Ooh, hold on. Because you said a few things, and I want to double back a little bit. So I know you're Asian and African American.
Yeah.
Or however you want to. I want to make sure.
Yeah.
You Black.
Yes.
Right. You're a Black woman.
Yeah.
Right. In America. Right. In the Midwest region of And you mentioned empathy, radical empathy. How do you find that? Right. As a Black woman in corporate spaces where, for as much as I've known you, I don't know that you shrink yourself anywhere, right? Or cover, right? Where do you find the gall to be like, no, I'm going to show up as me, and I'm going to also make sure those around me are straight.
Right.
When I can imagine, or have the inkling that people don't want to see me shine, maybe.
Yeah. I also had the pleasure of doing diversity, equity, inclusion work, which that can be great words or cuss words, depending on what space you're in, right? We could call it belonging culture too, if we want talent retention, make it sound better. And I think what's interesting is, born and raised in Wichita, Kansas, been here forever. So you get used to usually being the only one in the room, the minority in the space. Maybe I'm the youngest. Maybe I'm the only woman. Maybe I'm the only woman of color. Oftentimes folks are trying to figure out what my racial background is, or they know, like, okay, they've just pegged me as a Black woman, which is fine. But I think it's interesting to navigate those spaces. I do know this. My goal is, if I'm in the space and I'm the only one in there, I'm planning how I get 4 or 5 more folks in there.
Word.
That look like me or are on that spectrum in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Who is missing and why? Is it because folks aren't proximate? And I get the blessing to toggle these different spaces, much like you, right? Oftentimes we're in these corporate spaces, or we're in spaces where we're just not represented. So it's on us to bring in those other folks, right? Like, oh, you looking for board members? I got 4, 5, 6 names. Are you looking for someone to hire? You're looking for a small business. You're looking for the caterer. And it's just locking arms. Now, are folks always excited about that? No. And do they do it in a covert way? I think people forget this town is small. So I've heard some of the stuff that's been said come back to me.
Listen, it's like playing a game of telephone. Like,
yes.
I'm going to hear it with like some way, shape, or form.
Right. And it's noted. I know how to move, but that's not going to stop my grind. It's not going to stop the bag that we all need to make. I just won't play in that space. Or I'll send my ally to do it then. Oh, you don't want it from me? Well, let me call Tom. Tom will do it.
Two questions I want to ask. I'll start with this first one. So I know you are a major part of Wichita Urban Professionals, ICT, right?
Yes.
We talk about bringing people into the space. Like, if I pull up and I'm the only one there, for one, I don't want to be a token. I'm not the Rolodex. Well, I might be the Rolodex. I'm sorry. I'm not the thought process of every Black person, right? But I can open up this Rolodex. How do you identify and recognize, like, okay, I need to invite this person in? Like, because that's not always easy, because you put your stamp on somebody, right? Your expectations, they're going to show up.
Yeah.
Point.
I think that's where you have to be careful though too, because the other side of it is some folks might be like, oh, well, Danielle gatekeeps. I'm not gatekeeping, but I am going to mention the names of folks who have a track record of doing what they say they're going to do.
Word.
So I'm not in the business of putting folks in position that are not prepared to be in there. No different than when folks put me in position. Like, I think about a Kmart Morgan and some of the other, I call them their 18 people, right? They go to the door first, so then they can bring in everyone else. I had to make sure that I was showing up and making sure that my business acumen was where it was supposed to be. If I'm going to be in this space, and especially if I'm stamped by someone else, I am showcasing what they said I could do in the room.
Word.
No different. If I'm putting your name in a space because I've been asked to do so, I'm having that conversation. Listen, I need you to, this is what I see. This is how I've seen you move. That person needs to be the same person that goes into that space. Or I'm letting you know, hey, you might not be comfortable here. It's on me to prepare the person when they go in the room as well. Like,
ooh, talk on that.
you know?
So a lot of times folks are equipped with these gifts, but they may not be as bold. Right.
Right.
I always sure I'm not sure. I'm 6'3". I can't.
Right. They see you coming through the door.
They see me coming through the door. And sometimes if I'm looking to bring somebody with me, they may not have, they got the skill set to do the job, to get the work done, but they may not be able to navigate these personalities and perspectives and biases on the other side. So I need to make sure folks is equipped in that space.
Yes. You know, I share my experience. Hey, when I started an X group,
yeah,
this is how I was perceived. And Peggy over there, she might like you, but she might be someone that usually she doesn't like this or this. So you got to study that room. And then once you've invited those folks in, they have the same playbook. This is how I did this. And I never tell people what to do. I'm going to give you advice. I'm your advisor. But this is what's worked for me. I know you can be in this room. You're going to shine. You're going to do your thing. But just be mindful of some of these mines or pitfalls that might exist for you. And then I'm always like, do your own 360 review. Ask folks what people think about you in the world or in the space too. So it's some coaching, and it's not totally leaving folks once you've got them in the space and continue to keep the door open. Like you mentioned, urban professionals, I'm kind of on the back end trying to help prop up the leaders that are there. Alexandria Ware is phenomenal. And she's in so many spaces, just really growing. But she's someone I got a chance to work with and trust. So I know when she's somewhere, she's doing what she says she's going to do, because that's her brand. That's who she is. It's consistent. I'm looking for consistency. You get to falling off the face of the earth and I can't find you. You don't answer calls. You're not on your email game. You can't send a calendar invite. And you're not willing to learn how to do those things to be better or proficient. You're not on my list. You could burn me one time. I'm not going to keep letting you set me on fire.
I'm going to clip that part. Bar. That's a bar. Legit. You can burn me once. You're not going to set me. Oh, because I still got to move in this space.
Yeah.
I still have to be respected.
Right. We have to give space for folks to mess up. I don't expect people to be perfect when they're in there.
Fact.
I don't expect you just dropping balls.
You feel me?
Yeah.
Okay, so you talked about Peggy and Tom. And I know those aren't real people, right? But identifying allies.
Yeah.
Right? It's not easy.
Not always.
How do you find yourself like being able to let your guard down and say, okay, I'm going to trust this person with a piece of me, right, to help me move forward in my goals.
Yeah.
But they don't see the world the same way as me, possibly.
Yeah. And that's some of the best people you can run across, though, too, right? Your mind has to be open enough to not just racial, ethnic, gender diversity, but ideological diversity and just a different thought process. Like, differences make teams better. Differences make people better. And now my tolerance level for different might not always align, but I think there are people that do want to champion, or I've experienced being spaces where people are like, man, I would love to get to know you, or I would love to take you to coffee, or I would love to know how we can work together, and taking up those opportunities, saying yes. I've said yes to a lot of things. So now I'm to a place where I feel confident I can say no.
Okay.
And it doesn't hurt my brand, or it doesn't mean that I won't get invited again. I always tell people, let my yes be my yes and my no be my no. Don't answer for me, even though my life is full. Still ask me. But yeah, I mean, I think it's being willing to have those relationships, and it's being willing to get to know people. I will research people. Like, I'm not a stalker, but people put a lot of stuff on social media, so you can see how many kids there are, who their family, what their birthdays. LinkedIn, Facebook is a great way to have a bird's eye view. And I'm like, I want to get to know that person.
Word.
I know that they like coffee here, or I know that they're doing this. And so I'm going to work my way to build that rapport, that relationship.
I love that.
So then you build trust, and then you build that allyship, and then you know who you want on your team or who you want representing you. And then those folks choose you too, right? Like, not everyone's going to be the team Danielle, but some folks you don't even know are team you.
Ooh.
they're out here saying all these great things about you, and you just don't know. They've just watched you from afar.
Yeah. Oh, that's a bar.
Yeah.
That's fire too. Like those folks that's when you're not in the room, those advocates.
Yeah.
Like, can you think of any advocates that you've had that you didn't know were like holding you down until later? You're like, oh snap.
Yeah.
And like the conversation happened later down the line.
Yeah. I think about, and especially at the university, so being able to work at Wichita State, there are a lot of folks that I got a chance to work alongside. And it was maybe I did a training or maybe we just did a quick one-on-one thing. And they will say my name and I saw her speaking at this, or I saw her training at this, or, I just really liked how she showed up in this space. And they're saying, hey, book her, ask her, connect with her, send that student to her. She knows. A lot of the students I had the opportunity to mentor have been advocates and champions of, oh, if you're looking for someone that knows how to do that, get with Danielle.
Yeah.
So I just think about my previous lives. I worked at Applebee's. So I was in restaurant for a number of years, and you run into all types of people. And I've never looked down on anyone, regardless of their background. And so from a collegiate space to a restaurant space to nonprofit, I have been blessed to walk alongside so many different types of people from across this community that I think it's created this really great ecosystem of folks to say, like, no, I feel with her, ask her, or connect with her.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that because you are who you are no matter where you are.
I try to be.
And when you show up as you, like it's easy for this person to say the same thing that this person is going to say,
Right.
no matter what.
Right.
Fire. Thinking of diversity, and I was a diversity inclusion practitioner.
Yeah.
And it was still just diversity and inclusion before they put the
for all the other letters,
the XB on it. You feel me? But something that I realized, especially in the corporate space, was like there is a cause for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody was fighting for something.
Yeah.
Right. And of course, perspective wise, we all feel like ours is the most important.
Absolutely.
Right. You mentioned earlier that you found like, okay, this isn't for me to fight. Like, how do you balance that? Especially in a space we want to make sure everybody is straight, everybody is represented, everybody is has an equitable life, right? Like, how do you find, okay, this isn't my cause? Because it's discernment, I'm sure.
It is perfect. It is discernment. And I'm someone that wants to be a part of everything, but there's only so much of you. There's only so much time in a day. You still have family, you still have things. And then I think, what are you willing to sacrifice? What you speak on can be your detriment as well. As much as I love my community, I also know this community is retaliatory. I will say that in every space I can speak on. Someone will call ahead to your job, to your next opportunity. Someone will not agree or be comfortable with the thing that you're rallying or championing.
Yeah.
And it could come at a cost. So I try to be authentically me as much as I can, but I do know there are some things that I've stepped back from because I have to collect a paycheck.
Word.
I have to keep a roof over my family's head alongside my partner, my kids, have to be able to have clothes on their back.
Yeah.
There are some things I'm willing to go for broke. There's some things I'm like
a balance
that's
between
not a fight.
advocate.
Yeah.
Almost. Word.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as a woman in power, because you do a lot, you hold a lot of spaces down, like you act in power and excellence individually. Just so happen to be married to a councilman. Right. What is that piece of life like? Being able to make sure that you show up in space and show up for him in a community that's retaliatory, while also holding down it. And that might have been what Felicia was asking when she said balance, or she might have been the Libra thing. But that's that's a real thing, right?
It is. There are layers and intersections to my identity that I have to navigate oftentimes carefully. In my opinion, sometimes maybe those are self-imposed things or what I feel like the community is saying. I am married to an elected official. So when you say the man, you're talking about my man. Right. Like it's one and the same. And I have to balance. Maybe folks don't agree with the vote and they have every right to not agree with Councilman Breonna Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine with that. Sometimes folks have to protest the city council, and that might be at protest. Maybe you're protesting Councilman Breonna Johnson. I think sometimes that we forget that people in any of these positions, be it pastor, CEO, whatever, they are still humans. They are still normal, regular people. They might be called to a higher standard. They might be called to more things that they need to do in their role that might be different than what I'm doing. But I do toggle sometimes. I'm in the group chats when we're saying, we need to change. The city council don't do this, and no one believes in that. And there's a part of me that wants to say, well, Brandon loves that. He cares. Do you realize the calls he's taking? You're saying everyone, and certainly not. But I can't argue that because they have every right. Because he's still the father of my kids. He's still my husband. And there are times I'm coming to him as a constituent. I'll vote for you. Let me take my white hat off. Why would you vote that way? Right. And we've had those knockdown dragouts, but at the end of the day, that is the love of my life. That is my partner.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting space to be in. It's also been interesting when folks like, I absolutely love everything that he does. And I'm like, well, he ain't perfect. So
Man, didn't even take the trash out as much.
How are you spending all this time doing this? And we've not done this at home, or every missed thing. We're dragging our kids to meetings and folks are like, y'all ain't, where are you guys at? Well, our kids have been raised in this community watching all of this. So that's missed games, missed opportunities. No, we couldn't sign Aria up for this because that doesn't align with the schedule we got to keep for the community. The sacrifices are real.
Yeah. Ooh. Hold on. We're going somewhere. So as a mother, as a wife, right? Like, what is that like? Like when the kids want to be active, want to be involved, but to just know time and commitment just doesn't allow for it in the moment. Right. Like what does that do for you? Or to you, to your spirit even?
Yeah. It's heavy.
What?
It is heavy because sometimes, can we do this on the Saturday? And I'm like, well, both Brandon and I are booked back to back to back. We've brought them to this thing, and then we're snapping at them because we're like, be quiet, sit down. They've been being quiet and sitting down for 5 hours of our schedule. So we're definitely in the space of trying to be a little bit more unapologetic on, no, I can't make that, or no, he can't make that. Now, the trade-off is they don't care. They didn't come to this meeting, or, well, they didn't have any problems being at that. So why aren't they at this? And it's, you're damned if you're doing, you're damned if you don't. But at the end of the day, we have a family, and this thing doesn't last forever.
Come on.
I'm not always going to be at Habitat, and Brandon's always going to be elected. But what's forever is our family and our household.
Yeah.
And I think community members that understand it and have wrapped their arms around that, coming to support alongside us, being our village, those are the things and the people that matter the most. Because the next 4 years can look vastly different for people. And that is what it is.
People used to tell me, like, you should be a preacher, Sam. You could be.
It's giving preacher vibes.
Like, hey, listen, I'm like, no, I wouldn't want to be a preacher. I wouldn't want to be an elected official. Right? Like, I joke, but I'll be dead serious when I talk with Vernon. I'm like, I rap, bro. Like, what you need to do? Like, what company do you take on? But even thinking of that, right? Like that family piece, that community piece, right?
Yeah.
And community not just being on the outside, but like the folks you hold dear to your heart.
Yeah.
Knowing you got friendships and relationships that you had since before all of this, right? Like how do you maintain such a solid friendship, such a solid community? Because that ain't easy.
It is not.
It's not easy. People grow. People grow up. People a lot of times go this way.
They do.
Right? Not at fault with anybody.
Right.
Sometimes at fault.
Yeah. Sometimes intentionally. It's seasons for me.
Word.
Like some people are supposed to be alongside you for the ride. Some people grow with you. Some people you gotta go ahead and let them exit. This is your exit. Go ahead and take 6A. Because it's not working. I think I've been really blessed in that department too. There are friends that I've had since kindergarten or middle school, high school, college, and you can just tell the difference when there are folks that have said, oh, well, you've changed. And I look at that and I'm like, oh, you ain't, but how can you say I've changed? And there's people I've been rolling with since forever that are like, no, you were consistently you.
Yeah.
It was just time for them to exit.
That's real.
Yeah.
That's real. What I love about y'all, the Johnsons, like, because I can't think of how long we've been rocking, but it's been a very long time.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm going to be me no matter where or what at. Right. And what I appreciate is that y'all show up the same way.
Yeah.
Right. Like as our friends, as family, like that's really dope. I just had to say that out loud.
I appreciate that.
It's really like friends that I can keep my hair down. Sometimes you let your hair down and it's like, all right. Because I let it down. Too much he watching, right? But it's like, no, this is safe, like because I get this life thing we live. So
right.
which makes me think about the partnership you and Felicia have.
Yeah,
You see I'm repping.
Yes,
Bringing It
come
Black.
on. I'm excited about that.
Talk to me a little bit about Bringing It Black. I know for sure, right? I know all the funny thing is a lot of times I ask questions, right? I be knowing the S. I know the East. But Bringing It Black, of course, right? I know y'all started doing markets. Y'all been bringing businesses together, local businesses, black businesses, businesses of color, minority groups, right? Like, talk to me a little about Bringing It Black. How did it start?
You know, I was thinking about how did we start? And that's what's so odd. And probably Felicia has a better recollection than I do. But just kind of coming together. So it was initially me and Felicia and Autumn, and just really converging some really great ideas. I mean, we were all in the same thought process of how do we move Black businesses forward? How do we create and curate really dope events and day parties and opportunities? And so I think we just let our creative juices flow as a team.
Yeah.
And again, I operate best on a team. And so those two women in particular were just really great to work alongside. And it went from a couple of events, some paint parties, and some Black business markets to clothesline, like all types of, I mean, right? Just being creative in our creative bag and converging really strong women together that had really great ideas. I mean, what I love the most about it was just harmonious teamwork. No arguments, no issues, just let's do this. No, I don't like that idea. Oh, great. And we just kept it pushing. Obviously, Autumn has since moved and living her best Texas life. And Felicia and I are still making it work. And we've just been really blessed or lucky or privileged to know great people that have given us opportunities. Like we had a small business kind of holiday pop-up that is now the storefront for the gentleman that runs the shoe store.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Oh, I forget the name of it. I know YBG Studios.
Yes.
I just can't think of the name of the shoe store, and it's going to come to me later. But
Yeah. And so working with folks like Mike Ramsey in our community, allies, advocates, folks that trust great ideas and people and say, how can I help you? What do you need? There's been a lot of that. And Felicia's relationships, my relationships, bringing those things together to create really great curated opportunities.
Fire.
So hit the market, buy the clothes.
All of that. All of that. No, see, this is why I love thinking out loud, because I hear one thing and my mind gets to bouncing. Yeah. And you talk about creating opportunities. So with Habitat for Humanity, you do the same thing, right? In diversity and inclusion space, right? Especially at WSU, same thing. Working with poor, same thing. BIB, same thing. You really seem to be like a catalyst for opportunities, a catalyst to provide folks a platform.
Yeah.
When did that, like, I know you mentioned how you grew up.
Yes.
Right. But when did that become like front of mind to you? Like, oh shit, this is my thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's a good question. When did it become front of mind?
Yeah.
I don't, when you just do something for someone, I'm going to think about the friend group I curated. Word. In high school. Like,
word.
When some of those tenets are just always in you. And when when I've been able to do things, not that, you're a movement by yourself, but you're a force when you're together with someone. I believe in that forced multiplier thought process. Like, I only have so many talents, but paired with this person and those talents and this person and those talents, we can make something strategic. We can make something significant. And I think I'm always looking for what is that next thing that's going to leave that mark or make that moment or create that synergy. And you can do that when your eye is always on kind of a team thought process. I like to be around folks that have stronger things than I do, because that just kind of bolsters what we all can do. Mm-hmm. So I don't know when I realized that. That's a good question. I'm gonna have to mull over that.
Mull over it.
It'll come up at a party. Will we?
Right.
That is a good question. Ooh. No. Stumping.
I love it. I love it. But no, I ask that because I think about purpose.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of times we feel like our purpose is a singular act, or like it's a job or it's a role, when like, no, it's that thing inside you that shows up no matter where you are.
Right.
You can't help it. Like, it's like, yo, I'm doing the thing that I just did in this space. I can't so.
Yeah. You're just kind of, you're an actor in that, like Denzel. Denzel plays Denzel, doesn't he?
You feel
and he does it well.
Does it well.
It doesn't matter what the movie is.
What's the joint that's coming out? That's not the Gladiator, but it's like a part of the Gladiator movie, right? And I'm like, oh, that's Denzel. He's not getting the old time. This break that.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. No, I love that. So okay, we're gonna bounce all over the place. We're gonna
I love
so we're just gonna keep bouncing. Question I love to ask. 10 years ago,
10 years ago. Whew, okay. What was happening 10 years ago? I don't know what happened yesterday.
what would you tell Danielle 10 years ago? Like with everything that you gained, all the knowledge you gained, all relationship, all the things you shared,
Yeah.
right? Like what would you tell yourself 10 years ago?
Lean into more relationships. I've had the chance to be in a lot of like leadership classes, and there were some classes I experienced in my 20s
Mm-hmm.
that I got to be in the space because I had great sponsors and great mentors. I don't know if I was actually prepared. I mean, I was in there, but I don't know if I took full advantage
Okay.
of all the spaces I was in at that time. And I would say, like, really get in there and get all those thoughts out of your head about what folks are thinking about you, or did you show up correctly? I hate speaking about imposter syndrome, but I would say, and I struggle with it a bit still, I just don't show it.
Okay.
But I would say back 10 years ago, it was a little bit more of what am I doing here? Or who said I could be here?
Mm.
And I probably wasted some time and opportunities. Like I think I could be better, farther, faster today
Word.
if I got rid of some of those thought processes from 10 years ago that just kind of held me back or kept me in a box, or like who was really going to get me in trouble if I would have done X, or if I would have said this in that space, it would have been more valuable then.
That's a bar.
Yeah.
That's heavy. You said you don't like to speak on imposter syndrome.
Yeah, I don't.
You don't. We don't talk about it. No, so it's ill to hear that reflection,
Yeah.
right? Because how you show up now is the complete opposite. So you've almost learned it somewhere down the line.
Right.
What affirmed to you, like, yo, every seat I'm at, every table I'm at, every table I create, this is where I'm supposed to be. Like,
Yes.
is there anything specific you could think of that affirmed that to you?
Yeah. Respectfully,
Okay.
there are people that are leading now that have way less than what I'm bringing to it. Be it, I got my master's degree, and not that education is an end all be all, but the formative stuff that I went to go get after, and the certificates and the leadership, I did all these things, and there are folks that I know that did none of that.
Word.
And it was relationship or the son of, and that's fine. But why am I questioning what I'm bringing to the table when there's someone far less qualified proudly sitting at the head of that table saying nothing?
Yeah.
And they sit there.
You bringing dressing with the gravy up, and they bring it in a bag of chips. So like,
right?
Yeah, that's real.
Like 6 or 7. Oh, I've been doing that for 10 years. And I pop. I'm just gonna apply for that. That's great. Right, there are people that look at something and this happens to women oftentimes. We want to check 10 of the 10 boxes, and folks are like, I got 3. I'll do it.
Yeah, legit.
Yeah,
Legit. Ooh, that's heavy. That's heavy. So thinking of school, thinking of like heavy resume, working in academics previously, right? How in today's world where everything is at this information,
right.
how important do you feel like that formative knowledge is compared to like experience?
Yeah, I think it's both and.
Okay.
Right? Like maybe you don't have the educational background, but you've had such solid experiences that make you prepared to lead or be in that space, and your resume, your background speaks to that, right? Because there's privilege in accessing education. There's privilege to a lot of these things. So we want folks to be able to get there on their own. But I used to, and this comes with gaining wisdom, right? In your 20s, you think, and I see this in this generation too, our younger generation, they're like, I need that $80,000 job today. 0 experience. I love that hunger, right? Because that makes everybody else start paying folks right? So you need that kind of pinchy person that's saying, I deserve it now.
Yeah.
But I also understand the 30 years of experience that this person brought, blood, sweat, and tears, education and all, or experience and all, that definitely trumps what I thought I brought. I can bring fresh ideas. I could be all of those things. But you do have to pay respect to the person or the people that came before, that put it in and really got it out the mud for so many years. Now, I don't believe in I got to work my way up and toil for 50 years to get the promotion. I don't believe in that, but there is a happy medium. So it's how are you showcasing both? So don't make me wait forever, but I do know I need to have some experience.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. No, that's real. That's real as hell. Because it's a fair balance. Because there's certain things like there's certain foundational. You work in homes, right? The foundation got to be on point,
It does.
right? Before we get to building on like that ancillary piece of the crib, right? You want the swimming pool with the infinity pool, but fam, like your tub is cracked.
It is cracked.
Yeah, that's real. That's real.
The water leak.
The water leaking. Water dry as hell. You mentioned privilege a few times.
Yeah.
And again, as Black people, as Black folk, we don't always recognize the privilege that we have. I recognize privilege I have. I'm a 6'3" Black man.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got privilege when I walk in the door. You feel me? Like,
Yeah.
off top.
Yeah.
And I'd rather lean on that than any other bias that anybody may have on me.
Right.
Right. For you, when did you recognize you had any type of privilege?
Yeah. I'm a light-skinned woman. I'm a
Okay.
biracial woman.
That's why.
Oftentimes the people don't even know or understand that my mom is Filipino and my dad is Black. So I would find, particularly in high school and growing up and in jobs, the things I've been able to get away with and say and do have looked a little bit different for my darker complected friends and family members.
Word.
And I'm mindful of that. I'm mindful of the joke I get to land in a space or how I show up maybe in my attire is going to feel maybe a little bit different than someone else. The opportunities that I have been given maybe because of how I'm showing up in a space versus someone else. So I'm certainly mindful of that. And then I think about, just being a practitioner of diversity, equity, inclusion. We used to do this thing like the privilege walk.
Yeah.
And, you ask the question, how many books have been in your home? Or do you have a parent to read to you? Do you have, when you go to the store, can you find clothes? Just basic things. And generally, I'm middle to front in those lines. Or when I look back on my experiences, again, that doesn't mean perfection in your household. You still meet adversity, but overwhelmingly, I have friends and family that moved and went to 6, 7, 8 different schools.
Yeah.
I went to the same elementary, middle, and high school. I didn't even change my degree when I went to. That's how steady I've been able to experience some things. And there's a privilege to that. I knew who my bus driver was. I've had a safe neighborhood, a community.
Yeah.
I rode my bike with like those things create really great opportunities. There was my dad was a snacker. We had Hostess cakes. Right? I opened my refrigerator.
The bakery?
Yes, right. The bread store.
Yeah.
Those are my experiences. And that's a different walk than other folks. So I'm certainly grateful. But I also come from a household. My mom had a 3rd grade education, comes from the Philippines, 3rd world country, vastly different, very impoverished family. My dad, though, Birmingham, Alabama, had went to college at a historically Black college and university, military background experience. I just feel like I've felt the breadth and depth of different experiences. So it just makes me really grateful.
Yeah.
But I also know that systemically, I've been held back on things. So while there is privilege, there are those time frames where I know, I didn't get that, or someone didn't want me in that space for whatever reason I've experienced. And I think we still see it today. So it exists.
Balance. So much balance in your life. Like this all
Leering
out of like the bullshit.
Yeah, right. There's oppression in there too. It feels a little different.
Our kids are super privileged.
Oh my God.
Like, it's ill. Like when I'll be at Chick-fil-A, I remember maybe the first time I went to your crib for like the Johnson Barbecue joint, right? And I'm like, oh, we got the councilman, we got executive directors. Like my kids don't know nothing different.
Right.
Right. Like they have the privilege of being around such esteemed and established individuals who still got to struggle and fight with daily.
Yeah, so this is a regular house. Let's keep that a bug. Because people think we out here living $400,000 deep. We're not.
Right.
We're not.
Right. But it's so dope that they get to be around those type of individuals and to know like, okay, this is normal. Like I'm kicking it at a councilman's crib. I'm kicking it with executive directors. My mom has a boutique.
Yes.
Right. Like that's pretty ill. There's a flip of that. Right. How do you find the balance as a parent with kids who, again, are more privileged than we were growing up, essentially, right? And that's the goal.
Yes, you want better.
You want better. but you also want I want some character building to go on.
Right. Some adversity, some realistic living.
Realistic living. How do you find that balance?
Yeah, always trying to strive for that. Right. I was like, let me choose my words carefully on this. Cause yeah, I feel like, man, to your point, oh, you want the summer job, you want the internship, you want to go do this, you want such and such to write you a letter of recommendation. I mean, it is blessed and grateful.
Yeah.
I do think though that's where the volunteering comes in. It's taking my kids to the different events and programs. I want you to hear what the community is saying.
Yeah.
Right. I want you to hear what we're saying or what we're struggling with. So they're oftentimes privy to those really in-depth conversations. And then I'll go back and ask, well, when we were sitting in there, what did you hear? What did you hear that person say? When you were at that council meeting with your dad, what did you hear the community saying? When we were volunteering, I really think they have to see what the stratification of life looks like. Y'all don't know what foster care looks like personally, but you need to understand and be empathetic to what's happening in other people's communities. So I need you to go volunteer over here.
Yeah.
Or I need you to be at this space. And no, I need you to pay attention. Put your phone down. We're in this meeting and you might be bored, but you can't say you weren't aware or that you weren't connected to people and these different struggles.
I love that.
So it's important for them that we take them along. It may be boring for them sometimes, but they won't say they didn't see it or understand it.
Word.
Even though it might not be their personal experience.
Empathy.
Yeah.
Empathy.
Yes.
Ooh, I love it. I love it. As I look at my executive producer and the tech server. No, and I'm with a 16-year-old and my daughter. I'm grateful for Root the Power.
Yes.
Progeny, Destination Innovation, and programs like that.
Absolutely.
She's able to be out in the community and see some of the struggles folks are facing. Yeah. You can't vote now, but you're able to see the policies that are being passed or that are being fought for. And we've had conversations. We had a conversation on camera, so I'm cool saying that out. But hearing her thoughts on potential candidates, right, or candidates, and she's like,
yes,
right. So
yes,
stuff like that is dope.
You speak to that. I had the pleasure, and myself, Tijuana Hardwell, and Kyle Ellis, and a number of folks. We went through Hope Street Youth Development, something similar to a Root the Power sort of program, and that helped to shape a lot of the things that we engaged in. So we were able to connect with those policymakers and say, you have a zero tolerance policy that is affecting us. And while we can't vote for the school board members, we certainly need to be in their faces talking about how their policies hurt or help us. And that work certainly shaped who I am and the things that I get to do today. And I'm certain that shaped a lot of what they're doing. And, I think about your Joseph Shepherds and your Marquita Atkins, folks that are laying the foundation for young people to engage and be better, do better, be 4 and 5 times better than what we had the opportunity to be.
100%.
Man, there's no shortage of those folks doing that work, and it's a blessing.
At all.
Anya Kendrick Barnett, right, decided to run for office. These folks aren't just doing it in practice, but they're like, well, let me make the policy too, because I'm the most proximate to it. So, yeah.
That makes me, again, we just jumped and we be bouncing.
Yeah.
So looking at that, and I don't know if this is a question you want to answer or if I'm posing it to the right person. As we look at the youth, as we look at Wichita, right, we look at the work you do, where do you see our city 10 years from now?
Ooh.
And I say that, I often acknowledge I call it the Black Renaissance.
Yeah.
Right. So much people of color in policy change and in corporate spaces, in entrepreneurial spaces, small businesses that are turning to bigger business.
Yeah.
Sports, music, it's kind of ill to see.
Yeah.
But then it also makes me think damn, I remember looking at the Met set and all them stuff and all the folks that was on the wall.
Yeah.
We're that now.
Yeah.
Right. So
we're the change we want to see.
We want to see. So figure to that.
Yeah.
Where do you see the ICT 10 years from now?
Yeah. There are a lot of great things happening. So I would like to think we will be in a better space. I have a caveat to that, though, is we might be missing the moment. There are singular things happening. I think there are folks in great places and position fighting to move us forward. When I think about there's the community and maybe there's the minority community and there's a Black community. So when you peel all that back, there's going to be a biomed center downtown. There's going to be this and there's going to be that. where are our folks of color and our marginalized communities going to be 10 years from now? Because we can look at the disparities in the numbers today.
Yeah.
And some of those numbers are parallel to the numbers of the civil rights movement and parallel to the numbers of slavery. So I hate to be that person, but I want to be optimistic. If we can't get in a more collaborative space, like if we're waiting for the government to do right, and again, I'm married to the man, we can't wait for that. I'm seeing our Hispanic community put Rio Bravos in stores in their community. We waiting for someone to put the store in our community. But let's just keep it a buck. I think there are some hard conversations we need to have. Like, I want my reparative practices, cut my reparation check, here for it. In the event that doesn't happen, and I don't think it's happening anytime soon, what are the coalition building pieces that we're doing? Are we going to keep running folks for District 1 seat, or are we going to start running for different, like, where is the power playing dynamic that needs to happen? Because continuing to have one person in a space and expecting that one person to be the MLK be all end all change versus we need 7 of us doing it in different quadrants. I want us to be more systemic and more strategic, or we will have some great wins in 10 years, but we won't make great strides. So I'm conflicted.
Yeah. No, I mean, you hit on it. And I was going to ask you, I was going to ask 2 questions, right? Like, what is holding us back? But you answered it, right?
Yes.
Like, a lot of times it's nobody's thinking about, people only can see how far they can see.
Right.
And until you're exposed to something greater, you feel like this is all that can be done.
Yeah.
So hearing like the mention of like, we can't just be worrying about council seats.
Right.
And I think some people have seen like a Brandon step into that space. And so it's like, oh, we need to change that one. It's like, shout out to Carl Brewer.
Right.
Who was in the mayoral space.
Yeah.
How do we get into the governor's space? Like, how do we get into these spaces of like on point, intentional, and lose the savior complex?
Right.
Like, we all got to do some work.
We all.
That's why.
Yeah.
So, okay. Last question I want to ask you, Danielle.
Ooh.
Right?
This has been great. We can do this all day.
I love thinking out loud, right? That's the point of it, because it just bounces.
It does.
All over the place.
I love it.
And when you think to serving, when you think to being a parent, again, it's just all in the same lane of like serving. How do you keep your cup full? We talked earlier, you said you don't got no balance. You'll step and stack it.
Yeah.
But you have to take care of you.
Yes.
You got to put your mask on first on the flame.
That's what they say.
That's what they say. You feel me? How do you make sure that you're good?
Yeah.
So then you can support your husband who's District 1, being hit with all the foolishness from the community, but also being uplifted in some spaces. How do you make sure you're full when you balancing street kids, right? When you balancing the work and all of the energy that comes with nonprofit work.
Yeah.
It's nonprofit, right?
It is.
Because that's a lot of energy.
It is.
So then there's misconceptions people have about what the work is.
Right.
All of that. But how do you keep your cup full, Ian?
Yeah. You know, your girl has been in her spiritual bag.
I love that. I love that.
I have been in my spiritual bag, getting up in the morning and just trying to be prayerful. And I know it's not for everybody, but I take my first 5-6 minutes of waking up just to set my mind in gratitude, set my mind for being grateful, praying for what I need to pray for. I have a devotional book. I read my devotion.
Yeah.
You have to set your intentions because folks are going to come for you in your day. And how you leave your bed, how you walk out that front door, you have to set that mindset and go with the full armor of God when you walk outside the house. Or whatever it is, because you just, I have been a lot more spiritual. And Brandon, he's been he gets up at 5 a.m. and goes and works out. Now I'm not there yet. I'm trying. The morning is not my friend, but it is making some of those different decisions, like drinking more water and some of the things that you would think are like cliche pieces. They're just great advice. Stretch, turn that laptop off, clear your mind before you go to bed. Get some of that screen time. out of your way. So just get into those natural tenants.
I love that.
Go outside, sit, whatever it is. But there has to be an unplug. I'm not bothered. I'm just with family or just spending time with friends, whatever that is. But it is a let me fill my cup, because you will run ragged and someone else will be running in your space. You'll quickly be replaced. Doesn't matter.
That's the bar. Oh, that thing is loud. Hold on, let me give him 2 seconds to pass by us.
The floors are clean.
The floors are super clean. He was getting busy. I like that energy. And the crazy thing is, I'm gonna leave this in the episode too. I'm gonna leave it in there.
Listen, folks are doing the work. That's what we know.
That's it. They said the work is being done
Right from the janitor to the CEO.
Do you feel me? And listen, stuff like that makes my mind get right. And I think there's so much power in that statement, because it's the biggest piece of empathy I think you can have.
Yeah.
No matter what role or title somebody has, to respect it.
Absolutely.
I loved it. Danielle, before we part,
yes.
do you have anything that you want to get off your chest? Anything you want to share? Anything you didn't tackle?
There's a lot. Okay, so it's funny. And we kind of talked about this prior. And when you asked before for us to do an interview, I was still hot off the heels of the newspaper article.
Yes, I do remember that.
Came out and just, I think, falsely depicted a number of things. I've never taken the time to truly address it, and I'm not going to just totally unpack it here today. But what I do think is important is we, as a community, as people, we have to look past the headline and take the time to read and educate ourselves. And I think it was interesting to see folks share the article that we knew.
Hold on, you got to put a little context on.
Yeah.
So
there was an article from what was like the Facts Not Fear that was voted at the city council. That was kind of a continuation of work that was already being done by a group called the Black Alliance. It was basically a group that formed and came together very quickly at the height of COVID to be able to educate our own community and engage with our own community, and provide those responses and answers to COVID, like good information, knowing where to get tested, knowing where to get your mask, regardless of where you stood on it.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful time to watch varying community members of the African American community come together in their areas and just execute.
Word.
There was a grant that came along that Danielle Johnson had the opportunity to go after. And she worked with a number of people. Ultimately, it got voted on at the city council. I'm giving the Cliff's Notes version.
For sure.
And it created a lot of thought around, Breonna Johnson's giving money to people at the $400,000 level, the $4 million level, or, I actually was on Angelin's page around that time, and we had forgot that I was on her website. And that was purely because being new to the community, having a familiar face on your website was going to be able to create opportunities for her to connect with folks. I had never been paid by her company. I had never been paid by Danielle Johnson. We knew each other. We were building a relationship, a rapport, but hadn't done business. So the council vote went, and unfortunately, from that, folks thought that, there was an impropriety in the votes, and that money is being kicked back and all of this other stuff. And it implicated some folks that I do have a relationship with, but they weren't the grant recipient. So there was just a lot of kind of crazy that went with that. And when it all kind of hit the fan, I never had a chance to really address it and was very mindful. I had just started at Habitat.
I remember.
So I had to address my staff and my board. I was in tears with my staff. I was mortified because I didn't want them to think that they hired someone that is unethical or is doing crazy things in the community, or that even my partner was doing crazy things. So there was just a lot that came from that. And it's given me some media PTSD. I had an opportunity that I really wanted to share that something that happened in our community a while back, and I didn't go to the news with it when I had an opportunity as a side note of something else, but because I didn't know how it was going to be depicted.
Word.
And it just, and I'm not coming for folks in the media. I think overwhelmingly folks have good hearts and they're trying to do the right thing, but I just feel like that article, and folks would probably say, well, you were in it, it was about you, so that's why you feel some type of way. No, I haven't been feeling some type of way about that particular newspaper for a while and how it depicted stories of folks of color. That's not the first time that sort of thing had come up in that way. So it was interesting, but I'm a little more candid about it. But it was hurtful to see people that I felt like I had great rapport with that could have picked up the phone to say, I read this about you. Tell me.
Yeah.
Y'all cutting checks? I love the most of folks are like, you didn't run me any. If we would have had it, we would have read it to you, right? Like that's not how that works. And let's get educated about
100%.
how dollars flow through it. And that's not to say that folks don't do it. We are not afforded the opportunity to do that because someone will catch.
Somebody's gonna catch
what you're doing.
100%.
So yeah, it was crazy. Long story short, I think I would hope that people feel proximate enough, or even if not, pick up the phone the same way someone can message you for everything else, random under the sun, or can call Brandon and say, hey, we need to watch police tape because those police officers was wrong. They did me wrong. You could have also picked up the phone to say, is this real in this article? Tell me, how did this happen with this grant?
Yeah.
Y'all are giving money to people. Like, give us the opportunity to have the conversation. That was not, some folks did, but overwhelmingly, some people they're waiting on that downfall or waiting, like, I told you they were crooked.
I remember who I was speaking to. It was an interview on Thinking Out Loud, and we were talking about like people that'll throw dirt on your name, that'll share, that may be silent and then share like anything that's disparaging about you.
Yes.
But then turn around and need a favor.
Right.
Ask for assistance in some way, shape, or form. Like,
yeah.
I love life's contradictions.
It's a thing.
Because it shows me who you are.
Right.
And I'm going to treat you with love and respect.
Absolutely.
According to who you are.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a thing. Luckily, though, again, I'm always going to work in radical empathy. I think I've had some folks say, like, you're going to still give them a good recommendation? You're not going to stand in their way? I'm going to stand in your way.
Okay.
Because my thing is this, me standing in your way, I don't need the bad karma. I don't need the... you will mess up again. And that's not going to be on me. I don't have to be the one that delivers that.
That's real.
So when you're wrong and you do mean things, you do messed up things, or you want to say whatever you want to say about me, that's fine. I won't stop you. You will stop you.
Yeah.
Someone will, or you got lucky. You crossed the right person that's willing to just say, fine. But someone is not going to let you continue to do that. So, yeah.
I love that. No, I appreciate you trusting this space, Steve.
Yeah, it's been a little thing. And I'm unwrapping that a little bit more because some people are like, you never.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love it. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, anything else?
No, let's hear like the exclusive.
Here. No, I'll tell you, Danielle, I appreciate you pulling up.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's dope to have conversation with you. It's always dope to have conversation with you.
I appreciate that.
You are indeed family.
Thank you.
I'm prayerful, hopeful, and confident that everything that's yours continues to meet you halfway as you go get it.
I appreciate that.
May your family continue to just be amazing and blossom, operating with excellence. And just love you.
Thank you. We love you. Listen, these affirmations.
Come on.
Affirmation books.
Affirmation is key. Because then you got to walk in it.
Yes.
Right. Listen, I say law of attraction, prayer, spells, all of that is rooted in something true.
Yes.
No matter how you look at it. Yeah. So I'd be a fool not to affirm.
Right.
What feel and walk in it.
Yes. Come on, Thinking Out Loud.
This has been Thinking Out Loud with Samuel David, my special guest, Mrs. Danielle Johnson.
Thank you.
And we out.
Look both ways when you cross that street. Dot your I's and cross your T's. Measure twice, but cut once. Love life, live it up, bruh. Dream is good, do the work too. There ain't nothing you can't work through. And there ain't nothing I can't handle. There ain't nothing I can't handle. I look to the sky. And I thank God that I'm alive. I look to my wife. And I thank God she by my side. I've been through a lot, but I survived. It weighs on my heart from time to time. But there ain't nothing I can't handle.